Welcome to the final Women's Forest Congress virtual Lunch and Learn of the year. Today, we're going to take some time to do a bit of reflection on what we've accomplished so far and where we are today and what that path forward looks like for the Women's Forest Congress. I'm Ara Erickson. I'm one of the original and current steering committee members. I spend my time leading sustainability at Weyerhaeuser, and in my personal time, I try to spend as much time as possible outside among trees and flowers and raising a 13-year-old son in a complex world today. I'm honored to be moderating today's session on behalf of the full steering committee. And as I said earlier, when you joined, please turn on your camera if you're willing, and there is a way that you can view everybody at the same time. Make certain that your microphone is muted and be ready to ask questions and participate when prompted. So we're going to start today with a recap of what's been taking place since the in-person Congress in October of 2022, when more than 500 amazing people joined together in Minneapolis. We connected and convened, and we co-created a common declaration, some associated resolutions, and 10 ways that organizations in the forest and forest products sector can support these resolutions. Amy Doty is going to paste the link into the chat in case anyone hasn't seen them, and they're also a version of it is showing up on the screen. So in order to really live these resolutions, it can kind of sometimes feel like it's on a piece of paper, and they're not, they're real. And so we've asked Mary Kate Bullen, or she has agreed, to share some of her perspectives. Mary Kate is an original advisory council member and a current steering committee member. And she's going to spend a few minutes highlighting how some of the resolutions can be applied to a workplace setting or even a personal way of being. So before Mary Kate gets started, I just want to say thank you, Mary Kate, for putting time and effort into trying to make these feel real to us. And I'm really excited to hear what you have to say.
Thanks so much, Ara, and thanks everyone for joining us for the final Lunch and Learn. It's exciting to see folks from across the country with us again today. And I'll be honest, a little bit of vulnerability here. When we were talking about this agenda and I was asked to contribute on this topic, I was pretty daunted. In 2022, when we gathered and created those resolutions, they were ambitious, they're big, they're super important and very specific, and I wanted to be able to honor them by showing meaningful progress and action in the 2 years since. That was pretty scary to me. But after a very mellow, low-key Thanksgiving weekend and a lot of reflection, I realized it was a completely acceptable approach to instead show some simple progress and just celebrate that. And really, part of the challenge of our transformational change is that it can be hard to see that it's happening around you when we're right in the middle of it. So in the next couple of minutes, I'm going to share 2 vignettes where I see the resolutions in action in my life this year. They're relatively simple and not too intimidating. The first is my company's updated employee handbook. And I know an HR handbook might sound a little bit boring, but it's something I'm really excited and proud of as my first year on our company's executive committee this year. We put a lot of energy into updating it to make the handbook more current, accessible, and supportive to a positive company culture. And when I thought through that refresh and what we got done with it, I see that we touched on actions that fall under several of the Women's Forest Congress resolutions, including building systems that are, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit on the resolutions, more aligned with inclusive approaches to wellness, work-life balance, and providing meaningful benefits, promoting a variety of work environments, encourage flexibility, and ensure all work environments are fully accessible, to create a safe, inviting, welcoming workspace, and of course, to foster workforce opportunities for all women. So what does that look like when it comes down to something like an employee handbook? Well, the first one is an update that I was pretty excited about. We updated our parental leave policy with a few changes. First of all, it was no longer a maternity leave policy. We went gender neutral, referring only to parental leave and caregivers, not just to maternity leave. That also meant that we separated it out, so it was no longer part of the prolonged illness leave, highlighting more the focus on family and well-being rather than on the condition of pregnancy or childbirth. More generally in the policy, there was a focus on updating wording and terminology to be more inclusive. So we also took gendered language out from the dress code, and we modified references to family members and significant others using, again, more inclusive terminology wherever possible. The third thing we did was clarified and expanded our flexible work policy. I know that's been a topic over the years. We have had a pretty flexible work for some time, even back before the pandemic began. But we believe fundamentally that having this clarified and expanded is important to show that we believe our team and our employees can get their work done well by working in a variety of ways, and that looks different for different people. We wanted to encourage that we can maintain a sense of connection while doing something to foster that through ways other than mandated office presence. At the end of the day, we hope this lets people live their lives and use their time the ways they need to thrive. Another bigger piece of it was updating what we call LEAD, our Leadership and Employee Development Program. A cool component of this was that we increased our tuition reimbursement up to $10,000 a year. And I think in a lot of companies that's available just to a few people or a select few, but this is available to all employees at all times. So anyone can take that effort to grow their skills and continue to grow together with us, and we'll support them in what they're trying to do. We also clarified and built out the components of leadership and training, emphasizing again that these are available at all levels. I'm personally hopeful that we can follow through on this by analyzing what is the uptake that we see of these voluntary opportunities over time, and are they distributed throughout the business and to different people in the pockets and corners of our company. Another specific wording one, our equal employment opportunity policy got a bit of a refresh. And I was excited about this because we really broadened going beyond the set of characteristics or statuses that are protected under law and the legal minimum to go well beyond this, such as including gender identity, sexual orientation, and other statuses. For me, this was super important. Our employee handbook is one of the first things that new recruits see as they get onboarded, and for even existing employees to see this commitment that discrimination will not be tolerated across a range of attributes. And we want people to see that these attributes are seen and acknowledged and appreciated. And they're important to them and important to us. And lastly, we updated our whistleblower policy, and that's not a fun part of a policy, but we've made this available for all employee complaints and grievances, as well as putting in place a hotline that can be used for anonymous complaints. That's a bit of a safety valve, but again, comes back to a safe and inviting workplace and shows that we're serious about the things we put into this handbook. So look, I know this is just one policy with a firm with under 60 employees, but I'm excited when I look back at it to see that there's at least 6 concrete areas in this policy that tie into 4 or more of our Women's Forest Congress resolutions. So this is really the big ideas we had in 2022 coming into concrete action in one company, which I was excited to see. The second example to share briefly is a fun moment from October of this year. I had the opportunity to participate as a panelist at a session of the GIN, the Global Impact Investment Network Forum. The panel was titled Investing in Sustainable Forestry for Climate, Biodiversity, and Social Impacts. What was really, really cool about this panel, though, was that it was comprised entirely of women, and each of us were from different countries. So on the panel, we represented Canada, the US, Finland, and Uruguay. We had 2 women who were foresters by training and degree, and 2 from other backgrounds like myself. And I think sort of naturally it came to be this way. When you put 4 women on a panel, we leaned in on resolution number 9, which is to increase the use of storytelling at conferences, trainings, and workshops. So our task was to speak about a sustainable development goal, but we were able to do this through telling stories about what these SDGs meant to us and our businesses, and how we use narrative and examples to show that they were embedded into our strategies, our business plans, and our impact frameworks. And so while the world of impact investing has had important advancements to include impact data and processes maturing, we just can't ignore that storytelling is what makes it accessible and understandable to a broader audience. This session also really supported Resolution 10 to apply models and frameworks to generate and realize solutions to the greatest forest challenges. And I'm so proud to say that we could do that by showcasing with a panel of 4 women up there in front of a room of a couple hundred people, that we can do this built on women's strengths and leadership, using inclusive, collaborative, and multi-scale holistic thinking like we called for in our resolutions. So these are just 2 examples. I hope they're helpful to show that it's okay for our progress to be bite-sized. It can be one policy at a time, one panel at a time, a conversation, a new recruit, a new mentee, or even just one colleague who feels better supported and understood. And my commitment back to this group and all of you is that we will see the Women's Forest Congress in 2025 also lean in on storytelling, so we can help bring your stories of living the resolutions to light and share them with our network. Our collective action, one story and one piece at a time, is going to lead to great shared outcomes. I'm positive of it, and I can't wait to hear your stories.
Thank you, Mary Kate, for that. That was incredible to hear, and such a good example of these resolutions that are on pieces of paper and actually bringing them to life. And thank you for actually leading with storytelling, because you told us 2 stories. I loved your comment about it's sometimes hard to see it when we're in the middle of it. And I'll admit we're in the middle of the Women's Forest Congress right now from the steering committee side. So thank you for that reminder and for those 2 examples. Amy, if you could move on to the next slide. So Mary Kay just did a great job kind of summarizing an example of the resolutions. And since October of 2022 at the Congress in Minneapolis, we knew that there was real power in convening. We heard from participants that opportunities for networking and learning and sharing were important aspects of what the Women's Forest Congress provided, and that we should continue providing in the future. So in 2023 and in 2024, we hosted 9 virtual events similar to today. Those ranged from storytelling to forest bathing to career pathways. And some of those events are actually recorded and they're available to rewatch on the website, which Amy just posted into the chat. Thank you, Amy. We also helped organize or support, co-convene events that were themes from the Women's Forest Congress and that were relevant to that, and where people were already gathering. All 11 of these events are listed in an overview wrap-up that Amy will also post, as well as on the screen right now. We asked a few of those organizers to join us today, and I'm really excited to be opening up the screen to some of those people. I'm going to start to share a few reflections and their experiences. I'm going to start with Jamie Dahl and Elle DeWard. Thank you and welcome, and thank you for sharing a few of your words. And Jamie, you actually gave me a great prompt, which was, how did the 2022 Congress spur some of the action within Colorado State University?
Thanks so much, Ara. So hopefully everybody can hear me okay. I'm Jamie Dahl, pronoun she, her, and we were really fortunate that we had some great excitement for the in-person meetup in Minnesota in 2022, and we actually brought 10 students from Colorado State University, and that energy kind of carried momentum at CSU, and since we've been offering a spring event basically to honor the Women's Forest Congress locally. And so I want to introduce Elle DeWard, who is a student here and also works at Colorado State Forest Service. And she's going to share how those efforts sparked the start of a club. So Elle?
Yeah. So like Jamie said, I helped start a club at CSU to kind of cultivate the mission of the Women's Forest Congress. Amy, you can go to the next slide. And that club is called Minoritized Genders. Oh, the one before this one. There you go. It's called Minoritized Genders and Natural Resources, and our mission is to unite individuals by their personal and professional appreciation for natural resources and to create an inclusive and safe community for all individuals. So we're a brand new club at CSU, and you can go to the next slide now. And we've done a lot so far to get things going. We've had, again, like Jamie said, 3 years of Spring Women's Forest Congress events where we have panelists from local professionals talking to students and networking. We also hosted a film festival last month where we raised $800 for the club, showcasing short films about LGBTQ plus individuals in natural resources and outdoor recreation. And in general have just been a place on campus for connection, doing things like pumpkin decorating and whatnot. So yeah, that's the club at CSU that's really been trying to keep this momentum going. So I'll bring it back to Jamie.
All right, so the next slide, Amy. Well, I think it'll be there. Oh, there we go. So the last piece that we really wanted to talk about quickly was the women's meetup at the Society of American Foresters National Convention. And so that happened last year and again this year. And we were just really pleased with the event this year. So that's the pictures. You can feel the energy. There were over 120 women and, you know, those outside the binary in and allies in the room. So there was basically standing room only, and we discussed empowerment ways. Really, a main feature was showcasing local action and grassroots movements, and we talked about that in small groups, and then connections to mentorship. We have a lot of strong partners that have helped us do some of this work in Colorado and helped with the meetup. And specifically Colorado State Forest Service, Louisiana Tech, and CSU shared some of their local action, and it was guided by the resolutions. So there was a great team that planned this, and I encourage you check out the Women's Forest Congress blog, which maybe we can put in the chat, and you can read about that specific event. The same thing at the Society of American Foresters Convention next year. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Elle and Jamie. And if Jamie's audio got cut off for a second, it sounds like there'll be one other event at the 2025 Society of American Foresters event. Thank you. Great example of really coordinating, starting a club. Thank you, Elle. That's incredible. And convening where already events are happening. So next up, we're going to welcome Tia Beavert. Tia helped organize an event through the Indian Timber Symposium. I'm going to let Tia speak about that. Tia is a long-term advisory council and steering committee member. Thank you, Tia, for your leadership, and I'm excited to hear about what you have to share today.
Thank you, Ara. So in 2024 in Cherokee, North Carolina, the 47th annual National Indian Timber Symposium occurred, where we had the first inaugural Native Women and Allies Forestry Luncheon. It was largely coordinated by a group of women who just sort of got together and noticed that that space wasn't there for tribal women to talk about their experiences in forestry. The coordinating group had people from EcoTrust, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, Northern Arizona University, the Forest Service Research and Development Program, the Salish Kootenai College Trees Program, and of course, Yakima Nation. And the reason why it was so important to me for this event is that when I joined the Women's Forest Congress, it brought me into a space where I could grow professionally. And I wanted to share that experience with other tribal women to help them excel in their careers. At the event itself, it went extremely well. We had a great turnout for the small group that we thought we could capture, and we actually had to make more space available for more women. And we wanted to continue to impact Native women within the forestry sector and the fire sector to grow for individuals in the sector today and for generations to come. So the goal was to create that space and continue having that space for those women to, one, storytell, share their experience and grow professionally. And another goal that I had was to connect women from the Women's Forest Congress to tribal forestry, because I believe both entities have a lot to share and have a lot to offer each other, to learn from each other and continue to do that. And to further what we are doing is that in 2025, the Intertribal Timber Council's 48th annual symposium is occurring in Missoula, Montana, where the group is now developing a full day pre-symposium event that will also invite additional women to have that same space to grow professionally, share experiences, etc. But it was overall a great event, and I do recommend that if you are in Montana in June and you have the opportunity to attend a tribal timber symposium, I do recommend you do so. Ara, back to you. Thank you for letting me share this experience.
Thank you, Tia, for sharing the importance of really gathering together and creating a space. And it sounds like there's a theme of that we're running out of space, so we need bigger rooms. So thank you. And for that shared learning. And yes, hopefully we all get to make it to Montana in June. Good time of year. Thank you, Tia. So our other event that took place was at the International Mass Timber Conference. I'm going to invite Aaron Walker Anderson and Whitney Geyer to come and share a little bit about what inspired them to help organize this and what maybe they left with feeling or doing afterwards. Welcome, Aaron and Whitney.
Thanks, Ara. I'm going to go first, and I'll just introduce myself again. I'm Whitney Geyer. I'm the Director of Marketing at Skanska. We're a global construction company. I'm really excited to share a bit about our event called Women in Timber. So a little background, I've been in architecture and construction for the last 10 years. And while I have seen a lot of evolution since I joined the industry, I don't think anyone can argue that the building industry is still heavily white male dominated. So I've been a regular attendee at the International Mass Timber Conference over the years, which takes place here in Portland, Oregon. And every year I just remember thinking how yucky it felt to be in a sea of men during these conferences that are full of thousands of people, and how nice it would be to just be in a big room filled with mostly women and non-binary folks who are doing awesome work in the timber industry, because we all know they exist, right? So that's really how this idea started for our Women in Timber event at the Mass Timber Conference. We have a small but mighty planning committee that includes myself, Erin Anderson, who's on the call today as well, and Shelby Snelson. So the two of them have really been instrumental in making this happen and have supported all my crazy ideas since the very beginning. They've really just helped bring this vision to life. So love to have them as part of the planning committee. They're amazing. And a little bit more background on the event. It was really created as an inclusive space where women and allies can gather and network with other people in a variety of different industries, all related to timber, and have the ability to really share stories or hardships that they've faced in the industry, to grow their own businesses, and just feel a sense of camaraderie, being the non-majority in an underrepresented field. So it's really remained as strictly a networking event, which I think is part of the reason why it's been successful, because people aren't being lectured to like they are at the majority of the conference, and they're able to actually make connections during the event in a space where they feel comfortable to do so. Passes to the Mass Timber Conference are already really expensive, so we wanted to keep the event itself free to the conference attendees. And we did a lot of fundraising last year once the event gained traction and had a number of sponsors to cover our costs, and decided whatever funds we had left over from the cost of the event, we would donate to a like-minded organization with a similar mission and goals to what we're hoping to accomplish with Women in Timber. So when we learned more about the Women's Forest Congress, the mission was so well aligned with ours that we thought it was the perfect match. And I think just because so many people at the conference are in the building industry side, it was important to bring it back to where the timber industry really starts, which is in the forest. And there's this line from your mission statement that I pulled out that I really love. It just particularly resonated with me, that shaping the latest innovations and how actions informed by the female perspective can make a profound impact on the future of forests. And I love this because it's all about bringing diverse voices together to create more innovative ideas, which is exactly what we're trying to accomplish with our event. So thank you for all the incredible work you're doing, and we're excited to keep our partnership going and to continue supporting your organization however we can going forward as Women in Timber evolves. And Erin's going to talk briefly about how our event has evolved over the years and then where we're headed for 2025.
Hi, everybody. I'm Erin Walker-Anderson. I am the corporate manager of events at Swinnerton, which is also a large general contractor. And when Whitney came to me, I think it was in 2022 with this idea, or 2023 with this idea of creating this space, I knew that I instantly wanted to be a part of it. We started really small. We were given a small space, and so we leveraged that space as best we could. We had 120 people at our first gathering for Women in Timber, and that was, with a waiting list as well that was implemented. And we knew that we wanted to grow from there, because it seems like what I'm hearing from all of these other wonderful speakers is that there's this hunger for this space. And so last year we opened it up to more people, and we got over 500 people who actually came to network, which was really exciting. But what we are really passionate about is that we want to make this a grassroots community that isn't owned by anybody. It's owned by all. We want people to really take this community and run with it back to their cities and back to their hometowns. Or, if you're traveling and you end up in Portland, we want to have this network where you can reach out to somebody and maybe go get coffee with them and just kind of create this really big community. So what does that mean for 2025? We are still going to be hosting the event as the Power Hour at the International Mass Timber Conference. We did change it a bit so that we can offer more networking time. If people did attend last year, you'll know that it was early in the morning and that there were sessions that were butting up right against it, and people wanted to stay, but they also wanted to go to sessions. So we're gonna have it on Wednesday evening, and it's from 5:30 to 6:30. It's really designed that if you are having a really wonderful conversation and 6:30 comes around, you all can head to dinner, and we are going to make some reservations for people to potentially go and continue those conversations. We also have some resources here that we have created for our women in timber, and Whitney is going to drop several links into the chat right now. We created a LinkedIn page that we invite everybody to go to. We'd love to start kind of creating and cultivating that community there. We are going to be posting information about events and other things that we're helping to support in this LinkedIn group page. Another link that's here is this is a link to become to be entered into our mailing list, is kind of the community list that we're growing. If you do sign up for this link, you will be getting emails and things of that nature. So I just say that, but we want to use and leverage this list to, again, create that kind of community for our group. And then Whitney is a rock star. We love her. I love her. She was invited to be on a podcast here with Timber 20, and she's going to drop a link there so you guys can listen a little bit more about that. And then our blog post, a little bit more background about our event and why we chose to do it, and then a plug to the International Mass Timber Conference. If you're going, please register. You can register for our event in the whole registration process. It is free for everybody to attend.
Thank you, Erin. Whitney, I just learned so much from all three of those things, and I love the kind of synergies between Women's Forest Congress and Women in Timber and other events. So thank you so much for that and for sharing your passion. Annie Perkins is going to share a little bit. She's going to wrap us up on this section about an event that was hosted at the Sustainable Forestry Initiatives Conference. Annie.
Hi. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I was just posting some things in the chat, which is really risky when you're supposed to talk. Thanks a lot, Ara. And hi, everybody. So yes, I'm Annie Perkins, Senior Director of Green Building and Supply Chain at SFI. And what inspired me to help organize the Women's Forest Congress Breakfast at our recent annual conference this past June was that, well, I work in the building industry. And so for many years, SFI has sponsored the Women in Green Luncheon at Green Build, which is the annual conference for the U.S. Green Building Council. They oversee LEED and that kind of stuff. And it has sold out for the past 2 years, if not more, where 700 women attend that. In addition to that, as Erin and Whitney mentioned, I attend the International Mass Timber Conference every year and attended both of those Women in Timber Conference events, and I have seen them expanding by leaps and bounds, and just the excitement and the desire to have this bursting at the seams the first year in the small room, as was mentioned. So I've seen firsthand through the years how women and others are thirsty, hungry is what I believe Erin said, and I was going to use that word too, for workplace camaraderie and to share industry insights, knowledge, experiences, and hurdles that they've experienced with others in their field to help support each other. So hosting the Women's Forest Congress events really supports this strong desire to share and grow and support each other. So for this particular breakfast, we paired students and early career professionals with mid-career and seasoned professionals, I love that word, seasoned, to share challenges that we've all experienced and how we overcame those challenges in hopes to make things easier for others, or at least to show support and let each other know that none of us are alone, because sometimes we can certainly feel that way. And so the key takeaway from all of this and all of the Women's Forest Congress events for me is that everyone is eager to support each other and to help share experiences that can help lessen the struggles for each other and that they may be experiencing. And finally, all of these gatherings really help to illustrate for me and hopefully for others the really big need for the broader community, industries, organizations, government, whomever, to really increase the number of women in leadership roles to make stronger, more equitable, and resilient solutions that benefit us all. So that's all I have. And one other thing I thought of too, as we were talking about this, Aaron, when you were talking about, bringing this back, I think you were saying, bringing it back to your own states. There might be some synergies too, because that big Women in Green lunch that's at Greenbuild every year, there are regional events. So maybe there's some future opportunities for the Women's Forest Congress to reach out and connect with some of those Women in Green events that take place regionally throughout the year. And we can follow up on that maybe a little bit later.
Thanks, Annie. And hold those thoughts for good ideas, because we're going to come to that at the end. Thank you, everybody who just shared. I hope everyone heard, who's on the Zoom call, kind of the background, varied background from academics and school to building and construction to forest investment to forest management to nonprofits, and a real theme across all of these events. So thank you so much. In addition to meeting virtually or in person, we grew the community of the Women's Forest Congress last year through our reach through blog posts, LinkedIn, newsletters, Facebook, 2 published journal articles or special issues, which I'll cover, which will serve as historical references to the Women's Forest Congress. Leading up to the Congress in October of 2022, we shared 28 personal stories of blogs or personal stories from incredible women on blogs. And after the Congress, we've added an additional 17. These are incredible, insightful, and inspirational stories from equally incredible men and women. I really recommend going and finding them and reading them and being inspired. We've also included some of those blogs in the LinkedIn account, as well as the networking group. And I encourage you to join the LinkedIn account, as well as the networking group that Amy is pasting in. As I mentioned, the Women's Forest Congress is going to be forever recorded in at least 2 journals or trade publications. The Forest History Society included a full overview and multiple perspectives from a handful of people who attended the in-person event at the Congress. And Amy's going to post a link to that in the chat. And the 2022 to 2023 UNEC Forest Products Annual Market Review reference the Women's Forest Congress and the resulting declarations and resolutions. That is a global international document where WFC will be forever memorialized. So let's just take a quick moment to celebrate all of the events, all of the blog posts, the examples of us living and learning through the resolutions. It is truly the collective power of the community that makes a movement possible. So just take a minute, big round of applause, everybody. Thank you so much for all of your work so far and your effort. So where are we now? With any movement building, it's really important to take stock of what we've accomplished, which we just did, but also where we're headed. So directly following the Congress in 2022, we solicited input from all of the 500 plus participants. And from the responses that we received, the 2 top reasons for joining the Congress originally were to get inspiration and ensure a diverse sector with women in leadership roles and to network with other women in the forest sector. 96% of the respondents noted that they were able to fulfill their main priority while they were there. More than 3/4 of the respondents shared that their perspectives were very effective or somewhat effective at being represented, and even more felt that the event was very effective or somewhat effective at addressing relevant issues for them and the people in their community. Respondents also shared a wealth of ideas and recommendations for the future of the Women's Forest Congress, which both the steering committee and the advisory committee reviewed in detail and helped us formulate our interim plan. Earlier this year, the steering committee and the advisory committee then convened a series of strategy discussions where we asked ourselves what were the strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats facing the future of the Women's Forest Congress. And we helped try to figure out how we could envision the future of the Women's Forest Congress under different scenarios of unlimited resources, minimal resources, and no resources. We identified a series of strengths, including a passionate, strong, and enduring community that sees value in the network to a devotion of uplifting women, serving as a bedrock and to gaining different perspectives, and also developing the community across age groups and internationally. We identified some weaknesses, that this is mostly a volunteer-led effort, which is hard to maintain and can lead to leadership burnout. There's a lack of consistent funding, and there's a challenge of moving from a one-time event to a sustained organization. We did identify partner opportunities about partnering with related organizations, and also some threats around competition for funding or uncertain funding streams given changes in company or agency leadership. We also asked the broader community to weigh in, and we heard that the key benefits of the Women's Forest Congress are providing a space for women to discuss issues of importance to the sector, gaining a sense of community, knowledge gathering and sharing, and growing personal networks. And I think you heard that as a theme in the earlier conversations. We also heard that people would most like to see the Women's Forest Congress meetups and skill building workshops moving forward, that they include things like leadership development, negotiating, and interview skills as well. So we took all of that and we put it together as the steering committee. And we agreed that at a very minimum, we had to keep the house protected. We needed to make certain that the website was secure and up to date, that the domains were maintained, that the Google Drive with all of the files that have been created over the past 4 years have been maintained, and the LinkedIn account was kept up and running. With some resources, we agreed we could keep these quarterly virtual events going, and we could continue to co-host or support these related events at existing meetings and other forums. We did streamline a few things behind the scenes. We combined the steering committee and the advisory council together, and the steering committee members are truly rolling up our sleeves and helping support events like today. We are helping support fundraising, strategic planning, and communications, and much more. We've also moved the fiscal agent responsibility to Dovetail from American Forests, who graciously hosted and supported the Women's Forest Congress for close to 4 years. So we know that nothing happens without the commitment, dedication, and resources that everyone involved, past and current, gives of their time, energy, ideas, and money. So thank you, everyone, including those companies and organizations and individuals who've provided financial support in previous years, and those that have already pledged support for 2025. Most important, thank you, everyone, for being here today and continuing to be part of creating a movement for the forest sector and our broader community. So Katie Fernholtz is the president and CEO of Dovetail Partners. She was unable to join us today, but she did pre-record a video for us to watch and listen, and a call to action related to funding. As you listen to the video, though, and you're inspired by what you're hearing so far today, begin thinking about how you might be able to help grow the community, the reach, or the impact, not necessarily through funding. We're going to be asking in a short bit about ideas of how we can broaden the reach of the Women's Forest Congress. So Amy, if you could play Katie's video for a few minutes, everybody put on their listening ears and their thinking caps as we get into the engagement part. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. I hope you are enjoying this gathering, and congratulations on being in the home stretch of 2024. I'm Katie Fernals, president of Dovetail Partners, and I just want to take a couple minutes to update you on some of the fundraising activities for the Women's Forest Congress and what we have in store as we wrap up 2024. Let me load up a couple slides here and just walk you through this. Good. So I'll give you a little update on our fundraising, and today is Giving Tuesday. So of course we have plans. So hopefully many of you got an email message just a couple weeks ago that looked an awful lot like this. In late November, the Women's Forest Congress did launch an email giving campaign with the donate button and the opportunity for individuals and organizations to contribute to support the Women's Forest Congress. Want to express our gratitude. Within minutes of that email campaign going out, boom, people started contributing. So thank you very much to all of those that have already given to support the work of the Congress going forward. As I said, today is Giving Tuesday, so we are excited to launch a matching campaign from the steering committee. So now through December 20th, donations up to $5,000 will be matched. We'll do one-to-one match on all individual contributions, and we'll do a 20% match on corporate or organizational contributions. But thank you to the steering committee members for providing these matching funds. So please, go online and find and join this and have your donations matched through December 20th. In 2025, with your support, we're going to continue to build the Women's Forest Congress community. We're going to have our gatherings, the partnerships that we've built with other organizations, the in-person co-hosted events. We're going to have our newsletter, the networking that we provide online and through social media, and we are going to continue to work on our resolutions and the communications, raising up the voices within our community through our actions. So to join our matching campaign to donate and support the Women's Forest Congress, of course, you can donate online. There's the address, givemin.org/story/Women's Forest Congress. GiveMin is a charitable contribution site that Dovetail Partners is a part of. If you go to that website, you'll also see there's a link there if you want to donate stocks or securities or a donor advised fund. There's details available at that website if you have another way besides using a credit card that you want to donate. Dovetail Partners is the fiscal agent for the Women's Forest Congress. Dovetail Partners is a nonprofit 501c3 organization. So donations are tax deductible to the extent of the law. And our EIN, our federal number is there. And if you're donating, you may need to acknowledge the Women's Forest Congress as the program, the activity that you're donating to. Of course, donations can also be sent through the mail. Just send it to Dovetail, and the instructions here on the screen. But go to the website. There's also a donate button that gets you to the same site if you go through the Women's Forest Congress website. If you have any questions about donating, supporting the Women's Forest Congress, reach out to me directly. Just email me, give me a call, text me, whatever it is, and we'll try and make it easy for you. And thank you in advance for your support of the Women's Forest Congress. So thank you for everything that you do to support the Women's Forest Congress. Thank you to the steering committee for providing the matching funds for the matching campaign through December 20th. And thank you to American Forest for being the original fiscal agent for the Women's Forest Congress and entrusting Dovetail to carry this work forward within our nonprofit. So I hope you enjoy the rest of the gathering. I look forward to earning and benefiting from all of your ideas and your support in the new year. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, Amy, for playing that video from Katie. I'm going to try my best to make up a little bit of time because we have one person who wants to say a few things, and he is done at 1:50. So when we took stock of what we accomplished and where we could go, we did agree that we need to make a more formalized organizational structure and be clear about the intention of the Women's Forest Congress moving forward. So this is critical if we want to pursue funding opportunities with a clarity of mission and goals beyond what we're doing today. As with that old saying, we're in a bit of a chicken and an egg situation. To put this together, we need the resources to pay someone or a team to help create a business plan for the Women's Forest Congress, but we also need the time and space to allow for a focused interim period to assess all of our viable options. And that requires resources to support engagement from the current and past steering committee members, working groups, and with others within and outside of the current community. This is something that the current steering committee is committed to supporting with some of our own time and energy, but we definitely cannot do it alone. We are facing that reality that it will take resources and time at a level we don't currently have available at this moment. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other related activities or the impact of the Women's Forest Congress isn't growing and won't continue to grow. While there are many related activities and efforts taking place in and around this community, there are two that we have a close connection to the Women's Forest Congress. If Terry Baker is still on the phone or on Zoom, I'd love to open it up to him if he's able to share. He's President and CEO of Society of American Foresters and offered to share a few words about the U.S. Inclusion Council. I know Terry was popping in and out. He is here. Thank you, Terry.
I am here. I am here. Thanks, Aura, and thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me. So excited to be here today. And happy to share some things about the Inclusion Council. So for that introduction, Terry Baker, I'm the CEO of the Society of American Foresters, and happy to just be part of this discussion today. So the U.S. U.S. Endowment Inclusion Council has been around for several years now. I think we first met in maybe about 2022. So it's been about 3 or 4 years. And the thought, of this really came about from the context of, bringing together folks around what it means for forestry to have an inclusive space. Obviously, definitely echoing many of the tenets associated with the Women's Forest Congress in this effort, but looking at that, beyond gender. And I know this group looks at that as well, but something that we've really been trying to think of what can we do and how can we best represent a broad cross-section of the sector. So a lot of great leaders from across the sector came together. to start having these conversations of what this council could look like and how we could help move the needle, understanding that if we're going to affect change, we really need to try to look at that, at doing that across all aspects of forestry and natural resources, be that academia, be that, industrial companies, consultants, federal agencies, nonprofits, and everyone in between. And so, so I think a key piece for the Inclusion Council to share is just the vision statement. And ultimately that the forest and wood product sector, reflecting the diverse makeup of our society, is committed to equitable workplaces where people feel valued, safe, and that they belong, so that all people can sustain and benefit from forests. And an added piece to that is the Inclusion Council accomplishes its aims by convening leaders and partners from throughout the forest and wood product sector and identifying needs and opportunities to pursue our vision. Together, the council members and partners prioritize and undertake actions that will have the greatest impact and that are best accomplished together with a sector-wide strategy. Examples may include research, information sharing, and targeted initiatives. By working collaboratively and transparently, the council can support more efficient adoption of best practices throughout the sector and avoid duplication of effort or missed opportunities. And so I share that with all of you, and definitely I'm sure many of that, a lot of that resonates with all of you. And so there's been a variety of different efforts that the Inclusion Council has taken over the past several years. One of those being, holding learning sessions, and this whole idea, similar to some of the work of the Women's Forest Congress, really sharing those success stories and even some of those challenging stories that organizations have had related to inclusion, and trying to diversify the workforce in the forestry sector, and just how to bring people in, how to take care of people, what initiatives have worked, where there have been challenges. So that continues to work. We've commissioned some research. I know that PP Ed is on the call, and so we've been working with her and several folks down at University of Arkansas Monticello to do some great work. That there have been more information to share in the not too distant future about that report and that information, and really just an analysis of what's going on within the sector and what opportunities might we have. One thing that we're also in the process of working on is we'll soon be reaching out more broadly. So the Inclusion Council has been, a group of folks that have been selected to engage in this work, folks that are known to engage in this work in the sector, to initiate the conversation and trying not to make the group so big and unwieldy that it can't, get to the core of the work. We know how that can be a challenge. But really, we've started to look at an overall structure that'll be shared in the not too distant future around how we engage more broadly, how we connect folks. And there's been a variety of lessons learned, I think, in that group. One is, as we look at this work, the work of the council, how do we share information? How do we connect people? How do we, help this sector see these opportunities of being a more inclusive spaces? Helps us retain talent, helps us attract talent, helps us, showcase what forestry brings to the to greater society. But also similar, I think, to some of what you were sharing, are some of the main takeaways from the Women's Forest Congress, which is this place of folks that are like-minded in this work, having a space to connect, having a space to be supported, because oftentimes, if you're really a champion of inclusion, even in a leadership role, you may be one of the only one or one of very few in your organization. And so that space to also be kind of that shared network of support amongst these leaders, working towards making these things happen within their organizations, within the sector as a whole. And so it's been an exciting opportunity to work on the variety of things we've worked on so far, to really start to hone in on what we are and who we are. So again, I think some very similar paths and processes as the Women's Forest Congress, and how we continue that work and how we evolve that work. I mean, obviously there's some significant conversations that are taking place related to the incoming administration, and what does that mean for engagement, especially for federal employees, if there are new regulations, rules, restrictions put on being a part of inclusive efforts. And so there's a lot going on there. There's also been recent discussions with folks in the U.S. Forest Service and some other key leaders, folks within with Kate Gatto, also representing some of the key companies in NAFO, in this idea of the Workforce 2030 effort. That's some work that's been initiated at Mississippi State University. So there was a meeting that was held to discuss that entire effort and what would it look like to try to put together something that really encompassed the entire nation and profession beyond the state of Mississippi. And so some really good conversations again to think about this workforce challenge and how do we all do our piece within it, whether that be recruiting folks into academic programs, helping, that piece of helping students get through those programs and graduate and see this profession as a pathway of doing some really important work for our forest and for the world and all that means. And so those conversations are still in their infancies, but there's a lot of good energy and excitement around what could be done and how we can look at it, if nothing else, putting together some type of MOU to really say this is how we're going to connect and this is how we're going to try to move forward to really make a difference in the forestry workforce going forward. And what that looks like. And so we're excited about those continued pieces, how that integrates within the Inclusion Council. We're still figuring out, but I think there's some obvious overlap there that makes a lot of sense. And last but not least, I'll share a lot of folks that were some of the key originators with the Women's Forest Congress are key leaders involved with the Inclusion Council, including Rita Height and Katie Fernholz, Alicia Kramer, and many others. So I feel really fortunate to have those great women leaders as a part of that, and they let me step in and try not to mess things up. So here I am trying not to mess things up this afternoon, and just thanks again for the time, Ara, and happy to answer any questions if folks might have them. But thanks.
Thanks. Thank you, Terry, for joining. I hope people are starting to see that when you're creating a movement, a lot of offshoots take place. So thank you, Terry, for sharing that. One more that is happening, and this will be the end of our day. We're not going to do a Q&A, but don't worry, there'll be engagement, I promise. Becky Turner, if you could join and share us a little bit about the 9th American Forest Congress and the connection to the Women's Forest Congress, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ara. I'm Becky Turner from American Forest, one of the organizers of the 9th Forest Congress. A diverse steering committee representing over a dozen organizations and institutions, including some of us who are part of planning the Women's Forest Congress, have come together and have guided the planning of the 9th Congress to leverage partnerships, build from past Congresses, and engage change makers, educators, and influencers across sectors. Recognizing the rapid impacts of climate change on our forests and the vital role forests play in providing natural climate solutions, as well as the diverse communities that depend upon them, we must come together to advance fresh approaches to helping our forests adapt and thrive. You may have seen the Save the Date linked in the Women's Forest Congress newsletter earlier this fall. The 9th Congress will be held in July 15th through the 18th, 2025 in Washington, D.C. The steering committee recognizes that with the new administration, we will need to adjust some of our messaging to ensure participation, especially from our federal partners. However, the objectives remain the same. Our forests are changing, and we must adapt our approaches and scale up our work to help them thrive. We have multiple ways for individuals to engage with the process and the pre-Congress work. Due to limited space, we have space for about 500 people. We will be launching the website and the self-nomination process in early January. This is not to be exclusive, but to ensure we have diverse representation across the sector from different regions and backgrounds. We will have an info webinar in mid-January for those interested in learning more. We will be holding virtual workshops this spring along 4 themes: forest health and resilience, stewardship of non-federal forest lands, sustainable forest products, and reforestation. These workshops will have an opportunity to share knowledge, bring in new ideas, identify areas of agreement for proposed resolutions, and help to shape the Congress. Our intent during the Congress in July is to recognize the good work that has come before. We will be spotlighting the Women's Forest Congress in plenary, along with the lessons learned and outcomes from the 7th Congress that was held in 1996. We want to spotlight the Women's Forest Congress resolutions, both in the materials and the website, as well as at the Congress, to ensure their continued integration and adoption. We also want to ensure Women's Forest Congress participants can gather and network throughout the Congress during a happy hour and perhaps reserve tables at a specific meal. Taking lessons from the Women's Forest Congress, we will have a dedicated lactation room and a space for quiet contemplation, recognizing the need for different spaces for optimal participation. We are dedicated to creating a variety of ways of engagement, small group discussions, plenary sessions, talking circles, and more. There'll be travel stipends to break down any barriers to participation. All of this is lessons coming out of the Women's Forest Congress. The steering committee is open to all ideas on how to highlight, elevate, and integrate the Women's Forest Congress resolutions and participants throughout the 9th Congress.
Thank
Thanks
you,
so much.
Becky. Thank you, Becky. So with 2 minutes to spare, I'm going to wrap us up. Steering committee members, we're going to do an open Q&A, but we're not going to do that. We're going to be available offline. We would like to hear ideas from everyone who's on the Zoom call today in the chat. What big ideas do you have to help grow and reach the impact of the Women's Forest Congress? What more can we be doing given the resources we have today? What more should we be doing? Think big and creatively. Put in some ideas of how we can grow the scale. Do you have access to funding resources that we're unaware of? Are you willing to help and lean in? Are you going to be at all these events that were mentioned today? The Intertribal Timber Council Conference in Montana, the SAF Conference in June, the Mass Timber Conference in March, the 9th American Forest Congress in July. There are so many places to continue the conversations. There will be other events. Put your ideas into the chat. Let us know. You can also email info@womensforestcongress.org. And then other people have put in comments, chats around how to access questions around the 9th Forest Congress. So if you have any ideas right now, please add them. If not, please reach out to info@womensforestcongress.org. Please reach out to any of the individual steering committee members. We need all ideas. I will end by saying that, as I started, sustaining a movement is quite challenging. And as Mary Kate said at the beginning, sometimes you can't quite see all the pieces that are happening when you're in it. What I walked away with today is there is an incredible amount of activity happening that was spurred from the Women's Forest Congress, that was related with people who are taking ideas to their workplace priorities or policies, to starting entirely new organizations or new efforts. So thank you for leaning in to really what the Women's Forest Congress is about, which is trying to create a space and a platform for people to be able to connect and think differently. So as you head into the holiday season, I'd like to say thank you to whoever or however or whatever you celebrate during this season. Please take care of yourselves. Please consider supporting the Women's Forest Congress and all of the organizations and efforts that were related to, or discussed today. I am eternally grateful to the leadership of the steering committee and the advisory council members, and most importantly, to those who continue to show up to help push our resolutions and our declaration forward into our community and our field of practice. So with that, thank you so much, everybody. And steering committee members, I'm sorry that we didn't get to our Q&A, but you are wonderful for being here. Thanks for being flexible with the timing.